Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So as you have already read from the title, this video is going to be on twisted lies. Now in this video, I'm going to read out the blurb, give you a little into the book. It's a review, not complete review, but a little into the book, so that you know that what entails in the book. And then I'm going to read out the first chapter. And let me tell you, the first chapter is so good because what generally happens is like the first chapter is from the guy's point of view, which does not it's like her story and then the guy's story one chapter and then the third fourth chapter. By the third fourth chapter they meet and all that, but like here, like from the very first chapter things get started, and I like that about the book so much. It's like too like on the point. So yeah. So first of all, let me give you a little bit of deets. This is the fourth book in the series. Fourth book in the Twisted series. The first book was Twisted Love, which was on Alex and Ava, my favorite, absolute heart. The second one was Twisted Games, which was on Bridget and Rai Larson. I don't know why I always say the full name. And then we have the third book, which was Twisted Hate, which was between Josh, which is Ava's brother, and Ava's, the best friend, Jules. And the fourth book, which is this book, Twisted Lies, which is on Stella and Christian. Now, the first time where Stella and Christian are introduced, like together in one scene, is during the second book, where Bridget and Rai during Rai and Bridget's wedding. That was like gave spark that okay, fine, Stella may be paired with Christian, and that's what happened. Now my favorite book out of all the four books have to be the first and the last. That is the book on Alex and Ava, and this one, Stella and Christian. The reason because like the first book is it falls under the brother's best friend, enemies to hate, and because of the persona of Alex, like I don't give a fuck about anyone except her, and he's like so brutal about it. So I just love that when in like my fictional characters. And also this book, it has a little bit of stalkerish thing into it, where like Christian's a hacker, he knows all about her and everything, but also like he's so fixed on her, he just knows that she is his, but it's just that she doesn't know it. And like that, it's really good to read books like that. Now, who Christian and Stella are. Christian is Rai. If you've read the second book, he's his friend come ex-boss, and he has security company, and he's also into hacking and all that kind of stuff. And the other one is Stella. I mean, I think if you've read any of the books in the Twisted series, you already know that there are four best friends, and each book is based on them. So this one is on Stella. She's an Instagram influencer, but at the same time, she's also like she used to work as a magazine. She was an assistant to a magazine something. So yeah, now I'm going to read out the blurb. He'll do anything to have her, including lies. Charming, deadly, and smart enough to hide it, Christian Harper is a monster dressed in a perfectly tailored suit of a gentleman. He has little use for morals and even less use for love, but he can't deny the strange pull he feels towards the woman living just one floor below him. She is the object of his darkest desire, the only puzzle he can't solve. And when the opportunity to get closer to her arises, he breaks his own rules to offer her a deal she can't refuse. Every monster has their weakness. She is his obsession, his addiction, his only exception. Sweet, shy, and introverted despite her social media fame, Stella Alonso is a romantic who also keeps her heart in a cage. Between her two jobs, she has little time or desire for a relationship. But when a threat from her past drives into the arms and house of the most dangerous man she's ever met, she's tempted to let herself feel something for the first time in a long time. Because despite Christian's cold nature, he makes her feel everything when she's with him. Passionate, protected, truly wanted. There's a low twist sorry. There is a love twisted with secrets and tainted by lies. And when the truths are finally revealed, they could shatter everything. Twisted Lies is a steamy, medium to slow burn, fake dating. It's also the fourth and final book in the Twisted series, which I've already told you guys, but can be read as a standalone. But I recommend you please read the books in order so that you understand the events and you get the feel of it, because in this book Ava and Alex get married. So if you like already read the first book, it helps so much, and it makes you feel, at the same time it also makes you feel giddy, like, oh, they're getting married, and if you want the audio, the ebooks, or like of any of these, you can just let me know in the email, or DM me. I've put the details in the description box. Now, warnings. This book comes with a warning. It contains a morally grey male MC, main character, explicit content, violence, profanity, and topics that may be sensitive to some readers. Please see inside the book for detailed list, recommended for 18 plus. Okay, this was it. Now, I'll give you a gist about the book. Stella stays at a building. Stella actually used to be a roommate of Jules, but Jules in the third book we see that, okay, fine, she is with Josh Chen and she moves with him. So Stella can't alone afford the rent of the building in which she lives, and it's a super high class building, because she had some security threats earlier. There were stalkers and all that, because she's an influencer and all that. So like she needs some security, extra security. So they came here. This building, the owner of the building is Christian Harper. He himself lives in the building. He initially, because they knew each other, and he had been fixated on her, so had gave them the apartment at a very reasonable rate. But then when Jules moves out, Stella can't still stay in the building, because it's so above her standard, she can't pay for it. So what does he says, he she'll only give her share, and in return she'll water his plants. Okay, so that's the deal they strike. Now later she loses her job, but her influencer side is working better. She's getting more deals, but there is this one deal she needs to crack, and that for that maybe it'll help if she hits 1 million followers, and she's still some 900 something. So then she thinks about fake dating, and that's when Christian enters, and it's so smooth, you don't feel oh, I mean, yeah, he used his brain a little. It was so smooth, because things were not anyways working out for her, and he just stepped in. So and then the fake dating starts, and obviously they become real. Then there's a stalker that comes up, who is had gone silent for 2 years, but since she's made it online, we're showing that she has a boyfriend, so that she can get more followers. The stalker has also started sending threads that you should have waited for me, you are mine, and all that. And things escalate pretty fast, and then she moves in with Christian for security reasons, but obviously that makes them both come more close, and then they actually start dating. But then truths are still revealed which just shake her, and she has to take a step out. But then, again things happen, and then she takes a step back in. So yeah, it's a roller coaster ride. Totally worth reading, I am telling you. For me, it's a 4-star book. It's a pretty long book. So just you need to have a little bit of time in your hand. But for readers like me who sit one day and just read it, we just don't care what's happening in the world, we'll just read it. So for those of you, it's just fine. Now, I am going to read out the first chapter of the book. It's super amazing. I hope you guys love this book as much as I love it, or even more. And let me know in the comments, out of the four twisted books, which one do you like the most? And like, who is your favorite? So let's start. Also, before starting, I've already uploaded videos similar concept on Twisted on By Virtue I Fall by Cora Riley, in which the first chapter was like a read with me plus review, and the second one was like a go through of all the chapters. Do you want me to do the same with this book series also, or you just want me to read like the good parts or the epilogue? So just let me know in the comments. With chapter 1, Stella, my heart rate speed up. Nothing triggered my fight or flight like the sound of Meredith's voice. Yes, I hid my trepidation behind a neutral expression. I trust you can bring all the items back to the office yourself. She slipped on her coat and tossed her handbag over her shoulder. I have a dinner reservation I simply can't miss. She disappeared from the door. Course I can. I finished. The photographer shot me a sympathetic look, which I answered with a tired shrug. I wasn't the first magazine assistant who had suffered under a tyrannical boss, and I wouldn't be the last. Once upon a time, working at a fashion magazine would have been a dream. Now, after 4 years at DC Style, the reality of the job had dulled any shine the position once held. By the time I packed up the photo shoot, dropped the items off at the office, and started my walk home, my forehead was slick with sweat and my muscles were well on their way to become jello. The sun had set half an hour ago, and street lights cast a hazy orange glow over the snow packed sidewalk. The city was under a blizzard warning, and the bad weather wouldn't kick in until later in the evening. It was also faster for me to walk home than take the metro, which freaked out whenever there was so much as an inch of snow. One would think the city would be better prepared considering it snowed every year, but nope, not DC. I shouldn't have been looking at my phone while walking, especially given the weather, but I couldn't help myself. I pulled up the email I had received that afternoon and stared at it, waiting for the words to rearrange themselves into something less upsetting, but they never did. Effective April 1st, the cost of a private room at Greenfield Senior Living will increase to $6,500 per month. We apologize in advance for the inconvenience this may cause, but we are confident the changes will result in even higher quality of our residence. The green smoothie I had downed during the lunch sloshed in my stomach. Inconvenience, they said. Like they weren't hiking the prices of an assistant living facility by more than 20%. Like living, breathing, vulnerable human beings wouldn't suffer as a result of this new management greed. In, 1, 2, 3, out, 1, 2, 3. I tried to let the deep breath wash away my rising anxiety. Maura had practically raised me. She was the only person who had always been there for me, even if she didn't know who I was now. I couldn't move her to another assistant living facility. Greenfield was the best in the area and it had become her home. None of my friends and family knew I had been paying for her care. I didn't want the inevitable questions telling them would raise. I would just have to find a way to cover the higher costs. Maybe I could take on more partnerships or negotiate higher rates for my blog and Instagram. I had an upcoming dinner with Del Monte in New York, which my manager said was an audition for their brand ambassador position. If I, Miss Alonso, the deep, rich voice brushed my skin like velvet and stopped me in my tracks. A shiver chased its wake, born of equal parts pleasure and warning. I recognized that voice. I had heard it only 3 times in my life, but that was enough. Like the man who owned it, it was unforgettable. Wariness flickered in my chest before I doused it. I turned my head, my gaze traveling over the powerful winter tires and the sleek, distinctive lines of the black McLaren pulled up beside me before it reached the roll down passenger window and the owner in question. My heart slowed a fraction of a beat. Dark hair, whiskey eyes, a face so exquisitely chiseled it could have been sculpted by Michelangelo himself. Christian Harper, CEO of an elite security company, owner of the Mirage, the building where I lived, and quite possibly the most beautiful, the most dangerous man I had ever met. I had nothing except instinct to back up the dangerous part of my assessment. But my gut had never steered me wrong. I inhaled a small breath, released, and smiled. Mr. Harper? My polite reply was met with dry amusement. Apparently, only he was allowed to address people by their last names, like we all lived in a giant stuffy boardroom. Christian's eyes gazed the snowflakes drifting onto my shoulder before they met mine again. My heart slowed another fraction of a beat. Tiny crackles of electricity hummed to life beneath the weight of his gaze. And it took every ounce of willpower not to step back and shake off the strange sensation. Gorgeous weather for a walk. His observation was even drier than his stare. Heat rushed over the back of my neck. It's not that bad. It was only then I noticed the alarming rate at which the snow was thickening. Perhaps the blizzard forecast has been a little off on its estimate. My apartment is only 20 minutes away, I added, to, I don't know, prove that I wasn't stupid by trekking through the city in a snowstorm? I guess. In hindsight, perhaps I should have taken the metro. The blizzard's already rolling in, and there are ice patches over the sidewalks. Christian rested his forearm on the steering wheel, an action that had no right being as attractive as it was. I'll give you a ride. He also lived at the Mirage, so it made sense. In fact, his apartment was only a floor above mine. Still, I shook my head. The thought of sitting in a confined space with Christian, even for a few minutes, filled me with a strange sense of panic. I'm okay. I'm sure you have better things to do than to chauffeur me around, and walking clearly clears my head. The words spilled out in a rush. I didn't ramble often, but when I did, nothing sort of a nuclear blast could stop me. It's good exercise, and I need to test out my new snow boots. This is the first time I've ever worn them all season. Stop talking. No, so as much as I appreciate your offer, I have to politely decline. I finished my near incoherent mini speech on the note of breathlessness. I was getting better at saying no, but I still over explained myself every time. Does that make sense? I added, when Christian remained silent. An icy gust of wind chose the moment to whip past me. It tossed the hood of my coat off my head and burrowed past my layers into my bones, sparkling a burst of involuntary shivers. I'd been sweating bullets in the studio, but now I was so cold even the memory of warmth was frosted with blue. It does. Christian finally spoke, his tone and expression unreadable. Good. The words shook through me. My chattering teeth, then I'll let you. The soft click of the door unlocking interrupted me. Get in the car, Stella. I got in the car and I told myself it was because the temperature had somehow dropped 20 degrees in the space of 5 minutes, but I knew it was a lie. It was the sound of my name in that voice, delivered with such calm authority, my body obeyed before I could protest. For a man I barely knew, he had more power over me than almost anyone else. Christian pulled away from the curb and turned a dial on the dashboard. A second later, heat blasted from the vent and warmed my frigid skin. The car smelled like rich leather and expensive spice, and it was eerily clean. No wrappers, no half-empty coffee cups, not even a speck of lint. I sank deeper into the seat and glanced at the man next to me. You always get your way, don't you? I asked lightly, trying to dissolve the inexplicable tension blanketing the air. He slid a brief glance in my direction before refocusing on the road. Not always. Instead of dissolving, the tension thickened and slipped into my veins. Hot and restlessness, like an amber waiting for a breath of oxygen to fan into its life. Mission failed. I turned my head and stared out the windshield, too thrown off by the day's event to attempt more conversation. The nerves scalding their way up my chest and my throat didn't help. I was supposed to be the cool, calm one, the one who saw the silver lining in every cloud and remained level headed no matter the situation. That was the image I had projected most of my life because that was what was expected of me as an Alonso. And Alonso didn't suffer from anxiety attacks or spend their nights worrying about every little thing that could go wrong the next day. And Alonso didn't seek therapy or air their dirty laundry to a stranger. And Alonso was supposed to be perfect. I twisted my necklace around my finger until it cut off the circulation. My parents would probably love Christian. On paper, he was as perfect as they came, rich, good looking, well mannered. I resented it all as almost as much as I resented the way he dominated the space around us. His presence pouring into every nook and crevice until it was only thing I could concentrate on. I fixed my eyes on the road ahead, but my lungs were filled with the scent of his cologne, and my skin thrummed with awareness at the way his muscles flexed with each turn of wheel. I shouldn't have gotten in the car. Besides the warmth, the only upside was that I would get home to my shower and bed sooner. I couldn't wait. The plants are doing well. The statement was thrown out so casually and unexpected, it took me several seconds to realize that someone had broken the silence, number one, and number two, that someone was in fact Christian, and not a fragment of my imagination on, excuse me, the plants in my apartment. He stopped at the red light. They're doing well. What did that? Oh, comprehension dawned, followed by a tiny flicker of pride. I'm glad. I gave him a tentative smile now that the conversation was in safe, neutral territory. They just need a little bit of love and attention to thrive. And water. I blinked at his obvious deadpan statement. And water. The words hung between us for a moment before a laugh broke free from my throat and Christian's mouth curved into the tiniest of smiles. The air finally lightened and the knot in my chest loosened a smudge. When the light turned green, the power rumble of the engine nearly drowned out his next words. You have a magic touch. My cheeks warmed, but I responded with a shrug. I like plants. Perfect person for the job then. His plants had been on life support when I took over their care in exchange for keeping my current rent. After my friend and ex-roommate Jules moved out last month to live with her boyfriend, my options were either to get another roommate or move out of the Mirage. Since I couldn't afford to cover both portions of our rent, I had grown attached to Mirage. But I would rather downgrade my home than live with a stranger. My anxiety couldn't handle that. Christian had already lowered the monthly rent for us when we first toured the apartment and mentioned the regular price was out of our budget. So I had been shocked when he proposed our current arrangement after I brought up the possibility of moving out. It was a little suspicious, but he was friends with my other friend's Bridget's husband, which made accepting his offer easier. I would be taking care of his plants for 5 weeks and nothing terrible had happened. I had never seen him when I went upstairs. I just went myself in, watered the plants and left. How did you know I could do it? He could have proposed any number of tasks, running his errands, doing his laundry, cleaning his house, though he already has a full-time keeper. The plan thing was oddly specific. I didn't. Disinterest and a thread of something imperceptible twined through his voice. It was a lucky coincidence. You don't seem like someone who believes in coincidence. Christian's lack of sentimentality bled through in everything he did and wore: the sharpest lines of his suit, the calm precision of his words, the cool detachment of his gaze. Not something as nebulous as coincidence. For some reason, Christian found that funny. I believe in it more than you think. Intrigue kindled at his self-deprecating tone. Despite having access to his apartment, I knew maddeningly little about him. Christian pulled into Mirad's private garage and parked in his reverse spot, never near the back entrance. We didn't speak again as we passed through the entrance and into the lobby. At 6'3", Christian had a good 5 feet in inches on me. Christian Harper was the man cloaked in rumors and shadows. Even Bridget didn't know about him, only his reputation. We didn't speak again as we passed through the entrance and into the lobby. At 6'3", Christian had a good 5 inches on me, but I was still tall enough to match his stride. Our steps fell into perfect sync against the marble floor. I had always been a bit self-conscious about my height, but Christian's powerful presence wrapped around me like a security blanket, drawing attention away from my Amazonian frame. No more walking in the blizzard, Miss Alonso. We stopped by the bank of the elevator and faced each other. His shadow of a smile returned, all lazy charm and confidence. I can't have one of my tenants dying of hypothermia. It would be bad for business. Another unexpected laugh rustled my throat. I'm sure you'll find someone to replace me in no time. I wasn't sure whether I owed my slight breathlessness to the cold lingering in my lungs or the full impact of standing so close to him. I wasn't interested in Christian romantically. I wasn't interested in anyone romantically. Between the magazine, my blog, I didn't have time to even think about dating. But that didn't mean I was immune to his presence. Something flared in those bright whiskey eyes before it cooled. Likely not. The mild breathlessness transformed into something heavier that strangled my voice. Every sentence out of his mouth was a code I couldn't crack, imbued with a hidden meaning only he was privy to, while I was left to scramble in the dark. I had talked to Christian 3 times in my life: once when I signed my lease, once in passing at Bridget's wedding, and once when we discussed my Sans Jules rent situation. All 3 times I had left more unsettled than before. What were we talking about? It's been less than a minute since Christian's reply, but that minute had stretched so slow it might as well have been an eternity. Christian, a deep, slightly accented voice slanted the thread holding our suspended moment aloft. Time snapped back to its usual cadence, and my breath expelled in one sharp rush before I turned my head. Tall, dark hair, olive skin, a newcomer wasn't as classically good looking. The newcomer wasn't as classically good looking as Christian, but he filled out the lines of his Delmont suit with so much raw masculinity it was difficult to look away. I hope I'm not interrupting. Delmont's suit flicked a glance in my direction. I've never been super attracted to older men, and he had to be in his mid to late 30s. But whoa, not at all. You're right on time. A hint of irritation on hardened Christian's otherwise smooth reply.
He stepped in front of me, blocking me from Delmont Suit's view and vice versa. The other man raised an eyebrow before his mask of indifference fell away to reveal a smirk. He stepped around Christian so deliberately it was almost like he was taunting him, and held out his hand. Dante Russo. Stella Alonso. I expected him to shake my hand, but to my surprise, he raised it and brushed his mouth across my knuckles instead. Coming from anyone else, it would have been cheesy, but a tingle of pleasure erupted instead. Maybe it was the accent. I had a weakness for all things Italian. Dante. Beneath the calm surface of Christian's voice lay a razored edge that was sharp enough to cut through bone. We're late for our meeting. Dante appeared unfazed, his hands lingering on mine for an extra second before he released it. It was lovely to meet you, Stella. I'm sure I'll see you around again. His rich drawl continued a hint of laughter. I suspected his amusement was directed not at me, but towards the man who was watching us with ice in his eyes. Thank you. It was nice meeting you. I almost smiled at Dante, but something told me that wouldn't be a smart move right now. Have a good night. I glanced at Christian. Good night, Mr. Harper. Thank you for the ride. I injected a playful lilt in my voice, hoping the callback to our absurd formality earlier would crack his granite expression. But it didn't, so much as a flicker as he inclined his head. Good night, Miss Alonso. Okay then. I left Christian and Dante in the lobby, the subject of more than a few admiring stares from the passerby, and took the elevator up to my apartment. I didn't know what had caused Christian's sudden mood shift, but I had enough worries on my own without adding to his. I rifled through the bag, trying to locate my keys among the jumble of makeup, receipts, and hair ties. I really needed a better way of organizing my bag. After several minutes of searching, my hand closed around the metal key. I had just inserted it in my lock when a familiar chill swept over my skin and raised the hair on the back of my neck. My head jerked up. There was no other sign of life in the hall, but the quiet hum of heating system suddenly took an ominous tone. Memories of typed notes and candid photos burned my breath shallow, but before I blinked them away. Stop being paranoid, I told myself. I wasn't living in an old, unsecured house near campus anymore. I was at the Mirage, one of the most well-guarded residential buildings in DC, and I hadn't heard from him in 2 years. The chance of him showing up here, of all the places, were slim to none. Nevertheless, urgency broke the spell, freezing my limbs in place. I quickly unlocked the front door and shut it behind me. The lights blazed on as I slid the deadbolt in place. It was only after I checked every room in my apartment and confirmed there was no one lurking in the closet or underneath the bed that I was able to relax. Everything was fine. He wasn't back, and I was safe. But despite my self assurance, a small part of me couldn't shake the sense that my gut had been right and that someone had been watching me in the hall.
And so, guys, that's the end of the first chapter. There is tension. You see how possessive Christian Harper is, with the Dante. And I think the next series, what she's going to make, is going to be on Dante. And when you read the further chapters, you'll see, Dante, they once go to visit Dante and his fiance. So yeah, I think next book is going to be on them. Let me know, which out of the 4 twisted heroes is your favorite. And also the next book that is coming is going to be on God of Malice, which is, the Legacy of Gods first series, which is I hope is going to be fabulous. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much.